The DataSphere World Conference hummed with anticipation. 6,000 people packed the convention center, live stream cameras broadcasting to millions more. Marcus stood backstage, his tablet displaying the Resistance's final message. Eclipse documentation uploaded, awaiting your signal. Victoria stood at the podium, radiant in victory. Today marks a new era in social connection, she announced. Sanctuary 2.0 represents the culmination of our vision, an AI that doesn't just understand emotions, it guides them. Marcus watched the demos playing behind her, beautiful interfaces masking ugly truths. The new algorithm was designed to create emotional dependencies, targeting young users with precision-engineered content when they were most vulnerable. Beta tests showed addiction rates triple those of traditional social media. His earpiece crackled. Almost showtime, Phoenix whispered, "You sure about this? No going back." Marcus touched Sarah's butterfly sticker on his laptop. The same laptop now contained proof of everything: Project Eclipse's true purpose, the targeted exploitation of depressed teens, the deliberate addiction protocols, all of it waiting to be broadcast. Victoria's voice rose triumphantly. And now, the architect of this revolution, our Chief Innovation Officer, Marcus Chen. Applause thundered. Marcus walked onto the stage, each step costing him roughly $100,000 of his settlement. The spotlights felt like an interrogation. Sanctuary began with a story, he said into the microphone, his voice steady despite his racing heart. My sister Sarah was cyberbullied into taking her own life. I built Sanctuary to prevent that from happening to anyone else. He paused, looking directly at Victoria. But somewhere along the way, it became the very monster I feared. Victoria's smile froze. Security guards shifted at the exits. Marcus held up his phone, initiating live stream override. Phoenix now. The screens behind him flickered. Gasps rippled through the audience as internal documents filled the displays. Emails, code snippets, test results showing deliberate exploitation of depressed users. Project Eclipse wasn't about helping people, Marcus continued, his voice echoing through suddenly silent halls. It was about weaponizing their pain. Each of you trusted us with your emotions, your vulnerabilities, your private moments. And I, betrayed that trust. Victoria lunged for the podium. Cut the feed. You can't, Marcus said quietly. The truth needs no permission. Security approached as he pulled up the final document, his original contract, annotated with proof of DataSphere's premeditated manipulation. Every word he spoke cost him more of his settlement, but the weight lifting from his shoulders was worth more than money. I sold my silence for $10 million, he announced to the stunned crowd. Today, I'm buying it back, whatever the cost. The first row of tech journalists had their phones out, live streaming everything. Victoria's face contorted with rage. You signed an NDA. Marcus smiled, feeling truly freed for the first time in years. Some promises are made to be broken. As security reached for him, he spotted a teenage girl in the audience wearing a purple butterfly pin. She was smiling through tears, filming everything. In that moment, he knew Sarah would have been proud. The legal documents covered every surface of Marcus's new office, a converted garage with second-hand furniture and a view of his parents' garden. DataSphere's lawsuit demanded $43 million in damages. His bank accounts were frozen. The Tesla was gone. But the old purple butterfly sticker had found a new home on his weathered laptop, now joined by hundreds of supporter messages taped to the wall. Another tech company woke up today. Phoenix, now known to the world as Dr. Maya Singh, former DataSphere AI ethicist, reported over their secure channel. 300 employees, all wearing purple ribbons. #butterfly effect is trending again. Marcus smiled, watching his code compile on the screen. Haven, his new platform, was taking shape, a blockchain-based social network where user data remained solely in users' hands. No backdoors, no exploitation, no compromises. The lawsuit had stripped him of everything DataSphere had given him, but it couldn't touch what came after. A GoFundMe for his legal defense had raised $2.1 million in 3 days. Tech workers across Silicon Valley had leaked similar internal documents from other companies. Congress was holding hearings on emotional data exploitation. His phone buzzed. Amy, his ex-girlfriend, sending her weekly update from the advocacy group she'd started. Teen Digital Rights Initiative now has chapters in 23 countries. Your testimony changed everything. The doorbell rang. Marcus opened it to find a delivery. Another box of purple butterfly pins, each containing a QR code linking to Haven's beta sign-up. They've become a symbol of digital privacy rights, worn by everyone from high school students to senators. His laptop chimed with a video call from his legal team. Good news, his lawyer began. 3 more DataSphere executives have come forward as whistleblowers. Victoria's position is crumbling. They're discussing a settlement. Marcus shook his head. No settlements. Every document needs to be public record. People need to know what they're fighting. After the call, he walked into his parents' garden. His father, now in remission, was tending to the butterfly bushes they'd planted together. Still sure about turning down their money? His dad asked. Some things aren't for sale, Marcus replied, thinking of the teenage girl who'd approached him after his congressional testimony. She'd shown him her diary entries from when Sanctuary had been secretly tracking her depression. Not anymore. Back at his laptop, Marcus opened Haven's code repository. Thousands of volunteer developers worldwide were contributing, each line of code publicly auditable. The platform was growing organically, built on trust rather than exploitation. A new message popped up from a familiar username. That same teenage girl, now one of Haven's beta testers. Created my first digital privacy workshop at school today. 20 kids came. Thank you for showing us what courage looks like. Marcus touched Sarah's butterfly sticker, then began to type. Dear Haven community, today we're launching Butterfly Grants, a foundation funding young developers who want to build privacy-focused tools, because innovation shouldn't require selling the soul. The first grant is named after my sister Sarah. She taught me that sometimes you have to lose everything to remember who you are. And to the next generation of creators, your code can cage or free people. Choose wisely. Marcus Chen, just a developer who remembered his why. Outside, the butterfly bushes bloomed in the summer sun, their purple flowers reaching skyward, free and uncontained. 2:47 a.m. DataSphere's offices were silent except for the hum of servers and Marcus's keystrokes. He'd been debugging a privacy alert glitch for hours, fueled by coffee and guilt. The bug kept triggering false warnings about data breaches, and user complaints were mounting. Permission denied flashed across his screen as he tried accessing the core security logs. Strange. He was CIO. He should have access to everything. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his tired eyes, when a notification caught his attention. Backup Sync Complete, Project Eclipse. He'd never heard of Project Eclipse. 3 levels of security bypasses and 1 remembered Victoria password later, her dog's name plus her birth year. Marcus found himself staring at a folder that shouldn't exist. His hands trembled as he opened the first document. Eclipse Initiative, Sanctuary Acquisition Strategy. The timestamp made his blood run cold, 8 months before they'd approached him. Target, Sanctuary Platform. Primary objective, neutralize emerging privacy-focused competitor. Secondary objective, acquire emotional intelligence engine for behavioral modification program. Note, creator's personal tragedy, sister's suicide, provides optimal leverage for acquisition. Marcus read the line about his sister 3 times, each time feeling the knife twist deeper. They'd known. They'd planned it all. His mouse hovered over the next file. Phase 2 Implementation. The document outlined a systematic plan to transform Sanctuary into the world's most sophisticated data harvesting system. His privacy protocols weren't being gradually weakened. They were being strategically dismantled according to a timeline established long before he'd signed that purple-inked contract. User emotional vulnerabilities represent unprecedented monetization opportunities. 1 section read, Sanctuary's AI can be repurposed to identify optimal psychological exploitation points. A chat log appeared next, Victoria and the board discussing him. Victoria. He suspects nothing. The sister angle worked perfectly. Board member. Estimated timeline until full control. Victoria. 6 more months. He's implementing the changes himself. Board member. The irony is delicious. Using his own code to build what he feared most. Marcus's office trash, can filled with coffee and bile. On shaking legs, he walked to the window, pressing his forehead against the cold glass. 40 floors below, Seattle's streets were empty. His reflection showed a stranger in expensive clothes, wearing an ID badge that marked him as part of the system he'd sworn to fight. His phone buzzed. Another text from Victoria. Great work on today's implementation. You're making Sanctuary better than ever. Better. The word mocked him. He opened his laptop again, started typing his resignation letter, but a pop-up interrupted him. Reminder. Non-disclosure agreement section 7.4. Breach of contract will result in full financial repayment plus punitive damages. The $10 million, his parents' house, their medical care, all of it, chains disguised as gifts. In his reflection, Sarah's ghost watched him with disappointed eyes. The message appeared on Marcus's encrypted laptop at midnight. The phoenix rises from digital ashes. Do you remember why you built Sanctuary? He stared at the words glowing on his screen, heart pounding. The sender, known only as Phoenix, had somehow bypassed Datasphere's supposedly unbreakable security. The message continued. Your sister's butterfly effect created ripples. Some of us noticed when they became tsunamis. Marcus glanced at his office door, ensuring it was locked. It was 3 a.m., and he told security he was working late on quarterly projections. Instead, he typed, "Who are you?" Someone who knows what Eclipse really is. Terminal access point follows. Your call, Chief Innovation Officer. A string of code appeared, an invitation to a secure chat room. Marcus hesitated, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. Everything he'd built, everything he'd sacrificed, could implode with one wrong move. But Sarah's butterfly sticker caught the light from his desk lamp, and he made his decision. The terminal connected to a hidden network. Messages scrolled. Phoenix, welcome to the Resistance. Crypto Whisper, another Datasphere victim. Net Knight, the Sanctuary creator himself. We've been waiting. They were ethical hackers, privacy advocates, and former tech employees, all fighting corporate surveillance from the shadows. They showed Marcus evidence of Datasphere's operations that made Project Eclipse look tame. Psychological manipulation algorithms tested on unwitting users, emotional data sold to foreign intelligence agencies, teenage depression rates weaponized for profit. We need someone on the inside, Phoenix wrote. Someone who can help us build a countermeasure. For the first time in months, Marcus felt alive. By day, he attended board meetings, nodded at Victoria's proposals, played the dutiful executive. But at night, he became butterfly effect, working with the Resistance to document Datasphere's violations and develop privacy protection tools. The double life took its toll. His hands shook from too much caffeine. Dark circles beneath his eyes deepened. Victoria started asking questions about his late hours. You seem distracted lately, she said one morning, styling him over her coffee cup. Everything okay? Just dedicated to the mission, he replied, the lie bitter on his tongue. That night, he met Phoenix's team in person, in an abandoned tech repair shop in Seattle's industrial district. They were younger than he expected, brilliant misfits, armed with laptops and righteous anger. Each line of code is a weapon, Phoenix said, her green hair catching the fluorescent light. They turned your sanctuary into a prison. Help us break the walls. Marcus pulled out his laptop, Sarah's butterfly sticker, now accompanied by a small Phoenix decal. I created Sanctuary to protect people, he said, fingers poised over the keyboard. Time to remember who I am. The resistance grew. More whistleblowers emerged. But with each piece of evidence they gathered, Marcus knew they were building towards something that would cost him everything. And for the first time since signing that purple-inked contract, the thought didn't terrify him. Marcus's reflection in Datasphere's gleaming elevator doors looked alien to him. His usual hoodie replaced by a borrowed suit from Kevin, his wild coding marathon hair tamed into submission. 48 floors of ascending anxiety, watching Seattle shrink beneath him through the glass wall. The elevator chimed, penthouse level. Victoria Wells stood framed against floor-to-ceiling windows. Seattle's skyline spread behind her like a kingdom she commanded. She turned, and Marcus noticed three things simultaneously. Her Louboutin heels cost more than his entire wardrobe, her smile appeared precisely calibrated, and her eyes remained calculating even as she warmly shook his hand. "Marcus Chen," she said, leading him to a conference table that could have doubled as a runway. "The boy who made privacy sexy again." She gestured to a leather chair. "Though I suspect Sarah's story is what really drove you." His head snapped up. He hadn't mentioned his sister in any interviews. "We do our homework," Victoria said, answering his unspoken question. She sat across from him, placing a contract between them like a bridge. "Your sister's tragedy is exactly why we need Sanctuary. Did you know Datasphere loses an average of 3 young users to suicide each month?" Marcus's throat tightened. "That's why Sanctuary's privacy protocols are non-negotiable. Users need to trust." "Absolutely," Victoria interrupted, sliding sleek presentation materials across the table. "We're not here to change Sanctuary. We're here to scale it." She tapped perfectly manicured nails on the contract. $10 million, Marcus, plus a seat at the executive table as Chief Innovation Officer. Think of how many lives you could save with Datasphere's resources. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Dad's test results back. Doctor wants to discuss options." Another buzz. "Don't worry about money, we'll figure it out." Victoria's eyes flickered to his phone. Family health issues can be devastating, especially with inadequate insurance. She pulled out a Mont Blanc pen filled with purple ink. "Sometimes the universe gives us a chance to solve multiple problems at once." Marcus stared at the purple ink, the same shade as Sarah's butterfly. "Your sister wanted to make things better," Victoria said softly. "This is how we do it. Together." The contract was a novel of corporate legalese. Marcus caught phrases like intellectual property transfer and non-disclosure agreement, swimming between clauses about stock options and benefits packages. "We need an answer today," Victoria added, her voice gentle but firm. "These opportunities are comets, Marcus. They don't come around twice." His parents' medical bills, his student loans, Sarah's voice in his head, make things better. Marcus reached for the purple pen, not noticing how Victoria's smile shifted as he signed, from warmth to triumph, quick as a snake's strike. The pen made a soft scratching sound against paper, like chains being forged link by link. "Welcome to Datasphere," Victoria said, pressing a button that summoned champagne and photographers. "Let's change the world." But as cameras flashed and bubbles fizzed, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he just sold something worth far more than $10 million. Marcus sat in his new Tesla Model S, parked in the garage of his luxury apartment building, but couldn't bring himself to turn off the engine. The car's interior still had that new leather smell, a $140,000 reminder of his betrayal. He'd been sitting there for 2 hours, watching the garage's fluorescent lights flicker, trying to forget the tech conference he'd just fled. The girl's face wouldn't leave his mind. She couldn't have been older than 15, wearing a wrinkled Science Olympiad t-shirt, approaching him after his keynote speech. "Sanctuary saved my life," she'd said, eyes bright with gratitude. "I was in a really dark place, but the platform helped me find support. Thank you for creating a safe space." He'd smiled, shaken her hand, accepted her thanks, then walked straight to the hotel bathroom and vomited, because he knew the truth. That morning, he'd seen the latest Project Eclipse report, emotional vulnerability markers successfully identified in 94% of teen users. Targeted content deployment increased engagement by 317% in depressed demographic. They weren't helping people find support. They were finding people who needed support and exploiting their pain for profit. His phone buzzed. Amy, his girlfriend of 8 months, was calling again. He let it go to voicemail. How could he explain the panic attacks? The nights spent staring at his ceiling, watching the shadows of his Tesla's headlights dance like prison bars, the way he'd flinch every time she asked about his work. The voicemail notification pinged. "Marcus, I can't do this anymore. Something's wrong, and you won't talk to me. You've changed. The Marcus I met wouldn't. I just can't. I'm sorry. Goodbye." He checked his bank account on his phone. $9.7 million. The number glowed accusingly. His parents' new house was paid for. His dad's cancer treatments were covered. His mom had finally quit her second job. But at what cost? Opening his laptop, he pulled up Sanctuary's user metrics. 1 million active daily users. 1 million people who trusted him. The interface was beautiful, soothing, a digital sanctuary, just as he'd envisioned. But beneath the surface, invisible tendrils of code tracked every emotion, every vulnerability, every cry for help, feeding them into Datasphere's monetization engine. A notification popped up. Teen user number 247,891 showing signs of severe depression. Deploying targeted content package. Marcus slammed the laptop shut. His hands were shaking again. They did that a lot now. The Tesla's leather steering wheel felt slick under his palms. He turned on the air conditioning, but couldn't stop sweating. In the rearview mirror, his reflection looked haunted. Designer suit, expensive haircut, dark circles under his eyes like bruises. Executive parking spot, corner office, everything he thought he wanted. You either die a hero, he whispered to his reflection, or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. His phone buzzed again. "Victoria, board meeting tomorrow. Exciting news about Project Eclipse's expansion." Marcus started the drive home to his empty apartment, where he knew he wouldn't sleep. The Tesla's quiet electric hum felt like the purr of a monster he'd helped create. 3 months into his role as Chief Innovation Officer, Marcus sat in his corner office, staring at the latest optimization request from Datasphere's strategy team. The Seattle rain painted shifting shadows across his MacBook screen, where a single line of proposed code mocked him. User_emotional_data_retention equals true. It's just analytics, Jordan from marketing had said during the morning meeting. We need to understand user behavior to enhance the experience. The same Jordan who'd smiled sympathetically when Marcus pointed out this violated Sanctuary's core promise of data privacy. His new office, with its ergonomic chair and Art Deco sculptures, felt like a gilded cage. The $10 million had cleared his parents' medical bills, paid off his loans, and bought them a modest house in a better neighborhood. But each morning, the weight of compromise grew heavier. He pulled up Sanctuary's original code on his personal laptop, comparing it to the current version. Small changes had accumulated like toxic snowflakes. 2 weeks ago, they'd added optional emotion tracking. Last week, they'd made user data backups mandatory for service improvement. Yesterday, they'd introduced enhanced engagement features, corporate speak for addiction-driving algorithms. His phone buzzed with a message from Victoria. Team meeting in 5. Exciting news about Project Insight. Marcus's stomach churned. Project Insight was Datasphere's initiative to understand and serve the teen demographic better. In reality, it was a sophisticated system for identifying and exploiting vulnerable young users' emotional states. He walked into the conference room, where Victoria was already presenting. Sanctuary's emotional intelligence engine has exceeded our expectations, she beamed, pointing to charts showing increased user engagement. By identifying emotional triggers, we can now predict and influence user behavior with 78% accuracy. Marcus's hand shot up. This isn't what Sanctuary was meant for. We're supposed to protect users, not exploit them. Victoria's smile didn't waver. We are protecting them, Marcus. By understanding their vulnerabilities, we can provide better content, better products, better solutions. She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper, just like you wanted to protect Sarah. The mention of his sister's name felt like a slap. Marcus opened his laptop, pulling up a user profile. Look at this. We're tracking when teenagers are most emotionally vulnerable and using it to push sponsored content. How is this protecting anyone? You don't protect the sheep by asking the wolves permission, Marcus, Victoria replied coldly. This is business. Your contract makes our direction quite clear. Later that night, Marcus stood at his office window, watching the city lights blur through the rain. On his desk, a framed photo showed him signing the contract with that purple pen. He picked it up, noticed a detail he'd missed before. Victoria's reflection in the glass, her smile resembling a predator's grin. His phone chimed with another optimization request. This one wanted to remove the decline data sharing option entirely. Marcus closed his eyes, remembering Sarah's words about making things better. But as he typed his approval, he realized he wasn't making things better. He was making them exponentially worse. The soft glow of multiple monitors illuminated Marcus Chen's face as his fingers danced across the keyboard, each keystroke bringing his vision closer to reality. Outside his cramped dorm room, the University of Washington campus slept, but sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford. Not anymore, not since Sarah, his sister's purple butterfly sticker, the last thing she'd given him, stared back from his laptop lid, a constant reminder of why he'd spent the last 18 months building Sanctuary. The platform's interface glowed on his central monitor, its clean lines and soothing color scheme deliberately crafted to feel like a digital safe haven. Unlike the social media hellscape that had driven his sister to a final decision 2 years ago. Just one more integration test, Marcus muttered, reaching for his 7th Monster Energy drink of the night. His hand knocked over a tower of empty cans, their clatter breaking the room's silence. His roommate Kevin stood in his sleep, but didn't wake. He'd grown used to Marcus's late-night coding sessions. The code on his screen wasn't just algorithms and data structures. It was his answer to the questions that had haunted him since Sarah's death. What if social media could protect instead of expose? What if AI could detect emotional distress before it became critical? What if technology could be a shield rather than a weapon? Sanctuary was his solution. The platform's core feature was its emotional intelligence engine, capable of detecting subtle signs of cyberbullying and mental health deterioration. But unlike existing social networks that exploited such data for engagement, Sanctuary used it to create safety nets. Users maintained complete control over their data, with encryption so robust that even Marcus couldn't access it without explicit permission. A notification pop-up interrupted his flow. New email. Marcus almost dismissed it until he saw the sender, victoria.wells@datasphere.com. His heart skipped a beat. Datasphere was the tech giant whose privacy policies he publicly criticized in his viral Medium post last month. The subject line made his hands tremble. Your privacy platform. Let's talk 9 figures. Marcus clicked open the email, his eyes widening as he read. Victoria Wells, Datasphere's CEO, wanted to meet tomorrow. The email mentioned terms like acquisition, revolutionary potential, and mutually beneficial partnership. But one line stood out. We believe Sanctuary could help millions of vulnerable users. His cursor hovered over the reply button as Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. Promise me you'll help make things better, Marcus. The butterfly sticker caught the monitor's glow, its purple wings seeming to flutter in the digital light. He glanced at his bank account app, $283.47. His student loans notification showed $97,000 in debt. His parents' recent medical bills sat unopened on his desk. I'm doing this for you, Sarah, he whispered, clicking reply. As he typed his response, he failed to notice the predatory tone hidden beneath the email's polished corporate veneer. The seeds of betrayal were already being sown, wrapped in the promise of change and the allure of 9 figures.